Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 265. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the widely acclaimed, award-winning, and highly talented children's book author of Books for Benjamin, Mr. Rico deRouen.
Thanks for having me, Barney.
You're
nice
welcome. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about your latest book, Books for Benjamin. I read it. So first of all, it was as soon as I started reading Books for Benjamin, it's about a worm who likes to read books. For right off the gate, I'm thinking bookworm. Like, this is like the first thing that you're going to think of, bookworm. But there's a surprise ending in the book, which I was really excited to see. Right. So I don't want to give it away, but for those that you need to pick up the book and read about Books for Benjamin, there is a surprise ending in it as a children's book. Rico, do you want to first kind of give people a little bit of background of yourself and how you started getting into writing children's books?
My wife, who's Austrian, we travel a lot in the world. I'm an international teacher. Early on, I was in business, but when we met, we got married in Kenya. And my dream was always to go out and see the world and meet a lot of people. I used to be a camp counselor. So that's probably my first part of working with kids. And in Kenya, I met a nice friend who told me, well, you love camp and children. Why don't you consider going back home and getting, I'm from the US, Californian though, getting retrained as a teacher. And so I did that after Kenya. But during Kenya, that's where I discovered a lot of, Africa has a rich tradition of storytelling. And my wife and I had a lot of Kenyan friends. Our favorite thing to do was go out on safari. So about every other weekend, we would take our Jeep and drive out, and we had to photograph the animals in camp and just spend hours watching them. And stories happened because we were, our friend is always sending us on wild goose chases and saying, oh, you need to go. You never saw the hippos. I said, no. Okay, I better go back and camp at this place. What he didn't tell us was they could be a bit dangerous too. And we got actually attacked in our tent. Thank God he only hit the he hit the flaps, and the flaps came down, and then he just gave out this huge bellows, and of course we were shivering like something else. But you develop some respect for the animals, but right. It's amazing when you sit and watch elephants at play. And we used to sit for hours just watching some of the elephant children. And I would look and say, oh my gosh, that game looks like King of the Hill that we used to play when the elephants are pushing each other down back in the mud bank and then laughing all the way. And so stories developed from there. And I went later on to New York and got my teaching certificate. Fell in love with the East Coast, actually.
You said in a previous interview as well that Books for Benjamin, this actually was a long process. You had this idea. You have pre-Amazon days that you had this idea for this book.
Exactly.
So talk to us a little bit about how the evolution of the story, the seed of the story took place, and how did the process go by picking it up and putting it back down, and then the actual event of you just deciding, going to the coffee shops, as you said, is to just type it out or just write it out. How did that process happen for you?
Yes. Well, I started when I was in New York as a teacher. I was lucky, and I was able to take some courses at the Institute for Children's Literature in Connecticut. And that's what got it off. And I had a really nice mentor, and she's the one who Benjamin was one of the first stories I did back then. Amazon wasn't even around. That made a lot of things possible. I'm a self-published author. Back then, you couldn't do that. It was only traditionally published was possible. And so when I wrote the story, it started as a magazine story. But Ruth, who I was working with, my mentor, she said that, oh, but I think this has potential for a book, for a picture book. And I thought, oh, that might be nice. But unfortunately, life gets in the way over the years. You have children, and then you're teaching at the same time. Somehow it just stayed there. I didn't really do anything with it until about 4 or 5 years back. And I said, no, this story is nagging there. something that's still out there. I was also writing an elephant story as well that's about to come off. Everything had changed, with the birth of Amazon and Ingram Spark is a print-on-demand company, and all of these things made it now possible that maybe I should try this myself. Little did I know there's a lot that's involved, more than just writing. So, but it is nice. I mean, there are moments where you think like, oh gosh, I took on a lot, but so I got the story out again, dug the story out, and realized I don't need to change all that much. And it started from there. Got some editors to look at it again. It went from there, and the best part was picking being able to go and get an illustrator. Thank God I didn't. They didn't listen to me. I mean, completely. My wife was the one who was saying, "Oh, don't do a worm in worm colors." She said, "Oh my God, that's going to be just terrible." And I was like, "Really? I never thought of that." And as the writer, you sometimes don't always think about the illustrations, and it's so important. And
Right.
luckily, I found an illustrator who just on her own came up with an idea to make Benjamin purple.
Oh,
And we
okay.
said, "Oh, you know what? This is perfect. I like how she's done the family." And I had to admit, my wife was right, because a lot of children have told me that they love Benjamin in this color. So that's my Benjamin would have been probably not so good.
Talk to us a little bit about how you were able to find an illustrator.
Okay, that was over Fiverr, and Fiverr sometimes
Okay.
gets different kinds of rap, but that and I think I looked at the time at just two, and they the way you do it is often uh, put out the assignment and ask an illustrator to do the same scene, and then you can
Okay.
compare. And Juliana stuck out right away from the quirkiness of the expression she captures, and we just love that from the start. She's from Ukraine. Unfortunately, um, both the elephant book is also being illustrated by a Ukrainian lady,
Okay.
and the day we were kind of making our contracts, the war broke out.
Okay.
So they're really my heroes. They Juliana finished her book quite early because she sketches everything digitally. So she's able to produce it quite, we were able to do all the storyboarding and doing all of that quite quickly. Um, so I had to pivot from the elephant book to Benjamin. The
Okay.
elephant book's about a lady who's a true story about a lady, the family I know, that rehabilitates orphaned elephants and brings them back into the wild. And she's in Kenya, where I was living at the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
um,
Okay.
Kate is working on this one, but it's yeah, it's I don't know how. I honestly don't know how they're doing it. Producing these things. And in fact, one of them wrote me and said, "I'm really sorry, that to do this to you, because now the war's broken up." And I said, "No, don't worry about it. Um, I'll continue to
Right.
pay. Just stay safe." And
Right.
to flee, her area was devastated, and
Right.
she's still in Ukraine.
You said in one of you mentioned previously as well in one of the talks that you had, is that it's one of the successes that it's important for a children's book writer to do is actually write in your personality into your books.
Oh
Um,
yes,
do you want
yeah.
to explain a little bit further what you mean by that?
Yes, it's well, I've always liked, even as a kid, I like anything with some humor, and
Mm,
even in my classes, I just got it's an evaluation from some of my kids that just came back, and I was just so happy to hear that most of them, actually, quite all of them, wrote, "He loves to make jokes, and he gets us, and he cares about how we're doing." And I think that's the best that any teacher can hear, is if they're happy and they like to be in school and they like to be with you. And 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 they said, "And because he tells stories." and
yeah.
so and so that storytelling part is really good, and I think it's nice if you can bring in some of your own personality into it. Um, you mentioned the ending and some of the things. Um, I have a line in there. I think the grin wider than the Grand Canyon or something like that. And it's I had a little girl in my class from Russia, and she had just traveled here, and it's always hard when you come from a new country, and then you're now all of a sudden
Mm,
you're in Oman, and she barely spoke at the beginning, and
right.
then I showed her this scene from the book, and she starts laughing out loud. And now she's in my writing class, and she's speaking English, and I mean, yeah. So humor, I think, can go a long way. But the humor part, it's maybe a little bit harder to do always in a picture book. But I have a chapter book series I'm working on too. And my wife said, um, "Oh, that's you." And I said, "Yo, I have more room to do it in here, in the chapters." But yeah, so I think it's always fun to infuse a little bit of your personality and
Right.
quirkiness, and everyone has little different quirks.
Right.
It's
And now, is there a difference between actually having the theme of the book have your personality, or the characters within your book have your personality?
it's I think it can be a bit of both, but it's
Okay.
in this one it's Benjamin definitely has, like being about, being different. It's all about that,
Mm,
I'm different and it's okay. And I also wanted a little bit of, without being too preachy about it, but it's never giving up,
right.
pursuing, whatever it is that's your goal, and going for it. And he does that, and with the help of a few friends along the way, and has a few stumbling blocks. And I also try to do it in the characters a little bit, like the one you were showing now, just with the cat. I
Right.
remember that scene. I love illustrating as well. So Juliana and I worked on that scene, and originally she had the cat with a bit of a too happy face, and I said, "Oh,
Mm,
can you redo him a little bit and give him this ha 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 kind of, like like a little bit of a sinister kind of
right.
smile." And I thought she captured that really well too, with that he's just playing around with Benjamin there. And
Right.
so it's, um, but that's what I loved about it, is that when you're a self-published author, we get that chance to collaborate with the illustrator, which you might
Right.
not get in the traditional. Juliana was very good at like taking like what I was thinking, and change, putting that into action. And
Mm.
so that's what I loved about working with her.
And so you did mention that she kind of picked the color of Benjamin.
Yeah.
Was there anything else with the back and forth where you
Mhm.
were you were like, well, I really want to do this, and did she have any like pushback on you? Like, I really think it would fit better with this. Like, was
Mhm.
there any of that pieces, or was she?
No, in
How did
this
that
one it
relationship go?
went really smoothly.
Okay.
She what was great about it is she likes to, which she also did on her own. She story mapped the whole thing within a month,
Okay.
and I had to provide the instructions of kind of what I see page by page.
Mm,
So there's some detailed work that's involved there that you give the initial vision, and then, but she had a lot of leeway also on interpreting that. And
okay.
but there were only a few incidences where, like I might said, "Oh well, this is now taking place more in a city, so could you add a city look to it instead of
Right.
the farmhouse or something like that?" And and on this particular page, it was, "Oh, it would be nice, I think, if the penguin shows up as well, kind of like what he's reading to is, Um, she did push back on one thing, because um, I think I have a line that's called "Pirates to Penguin," and she doesn't really um, um, like to illustrate pirates. So
Mm,
I said, "That's no problem, because we can do penguins in the book as well." So, and she did that quite nicely. And she even added the parts of like biology that I'm looking at right now, making it look like it's in the library, and that probably would be on the book, on certain books, history and
right.
biology. So I think she understood the whole concept really well.
Talk to us again about the scripting piece to it. Like, how different is the actual final product draft compared
Mhm.
to your original? Was there how much of rewritings did you have to do, and what were some of the feedback you get from editors
Mhm.
that you received?
Yes. I was lucky with Benjamin that the original rewrites were done long ago, and so when I went to
Okay.
the editing stage, um, they liked it quite quickly. And the one area that definitely needed some change is I have a habit of I tend to write in a passive tense more,
Mm,
and picture books require a lot of you want that action, and
okay.
I got lucky with an editor who so just slight changes to the verb tense and how she did that was perfect.
Mm,
And I said, oh yeah, that makes sense. And but I've had that um, tendency since you know elementary school, high school, everything, to write more in a passive voice.
right.
And so that's really good. And I think a great tip is to always get outside help and others who look at it again. But the basic sentences, I didn't have to change a lot at all. I was lucky
Okay.
with this one. Mhm. Mhm.
For those that might be listening or watching this who would say, who might be daunted by the idea of
Mhm.
self-publishing, what is some of the advice that you would give that for those that are thinking about self-publishing their own children's book?
Okay. Yes. Well, I did a lot of reading up on different aspects of it. I probably should have done a
Okay.
bit more about the marketing part, but yeah, that's because that's the one area that once you're done with the book, the written part and working with editors and your illustrator, it's all very very doable. But marketing was new, so I needed
Mm,
to get my head around that, and I kind of there's the whole social media aspect, and I kind of see myself as a bit of a social media misfit. So my daughters help me with that one, and that you need to get out there on Instagram or Facebook and Pinterest and different parts of that, and just trying to get your book out there to be seen. And
right.
but there are a lot of good people who write about this kind of thing and can give you advice about where to look for and find your niche and who would be your reader and your market. And
Right.
the in this case, with children's picture books, it's primarily the parents,
Mm,
that you're that and the large percentage are mainly female, and
yeah.
so it's that are buying those books. Although dads are going into. I'm one of those that I can't go into a Barnes and Noble without going to the picture book section and buying, coming out with a whole bunch of them again and telling my wife that, oh, this is what I'm going to use in my classroom again. And
Right.
so it's my excuse for getting a few more books. And but I find they're just the illustrators and what they do and the writer, it's just amazing that some of these
Right.
books. And I love what kids get out of them and how they'll
Mm,
go back to them. Even at my age, we go back to the books that we love and
right.
still reread them.
And so, like you brought up a good point too, is like one of the aspects of children's books is that you write it for children, but children aren't, but you also have to write it for adults who are going to be
Yeah.
reading it to children or adults going to be buying it for children.
Mhm.
What are some of the lessons that you learned throughout this process that you're going to be taking forward also with your elephant book and some other sequels?
Ah, yes. The that market is they're looking for books that I think I like to write in a certain style that entertains and at the same time is educational. So
Right.
so far what I've been writing kind of has a combination of that. With Benjamin, it's the whole valuing libraries idea and going after certain aspects of your goals. I'm also a big nature lover and
Mm,
was fortunate to one time work with Jane Goodall a bit and in schools, and the whole aspect of going on safari and learning about these animals, um, and kids love animals, so the parents I think a lot of our parents are looking for that combination, books that can inspire their kids to love reading, but also at the same time they can maybe learn something about the world and other
right.
children around the world. Um, nature and animals. And very big is also right now currently, the like what Bethany Stahl does, save the Earth kind of series, and you know the plastics problem in the ocean, and kids are actually very receptive to. I see that in my own teaching, these kind of issues that are in the world, and they really want to help. They're usually their hands go up and they say like, well, I think I can do this or I can do this and make a change. And um, so I think a lot of parents are out there looking for um, books that help inspire um, and give their kids confidence,
Mm,
to be whatever they'd like to be and create things themselves.
right. And how, because I noticed too, is like one of the, as you mentioned Bethany Stahl as well, is that
Mhm.
there seems to be a trend of making sure that you have companion activities with a
Yeah.
children's book. So
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about what some resources that people that are going to be looking at
Mhm.
books for Benjamin. What are some of the
Oh,
companion activities that
mhm.
you have available as well?
Yes, I have. Um, there's a maze that we put out. I have another PDF that'll be coming out. That's a download that we call these teacher guides often. Um,
Okay.
but a lot of parents make use of them, especially homeschooling parents. Um, and they usually have the different subject areas in school.
Hmm.
Often there's, math activities, art activities, like, where in my case it's they are going to be making a bookmark, or going on. They have activities like going on a treasure hunt in the library, um,
Right.
and learning about different genres that are in the library. Um, so that's very typical often now. And so
Okay.
my initial one was just the bookmark and coloring pages. That's often there, but there's now going to be a whole activity section that's everything from geography to often history. So you might go into, in this case, a little bit of a little bit more. I have some in my back matter about the history of libraries, but
Okay.
there's
Yeah.
usually a packet where teachers or anyone can download it, usually for free. It's offered for free, and so that librarians, parents, and school teachers can use the resource as a companion to the book. And
Okay.
that's very often very popular now. And
Mm.
and I know as a teacher myself, I always appreciate it when I'm doing guided reading groups and working with kids. Is is there a packet that's downloadable that I can use that the authors already provided for me,
Right.
and and with activities and such. So that's mhm.
Because you mentioned a really good point, is like you are also a teacher, and what are some of the activities that you're also looking to add, other activities, as we talked about the maze, the coloring sheets, the
Yeah.
bookmarks? Is there anything else that you have in process that will also be some companion pieces that go along with books for Benjamin?
Yes, the books for Benjamin. The historical part is more about going into that about the cuneiform and and different
Right. Okay.
types of writing, and um, without giving too much of it away, but in the end about how the copyright symbol becomes such an important piece to this book, and what is that, and
Right.
what's behind that, and so that's kind of the historical part. And
Right.
the another activity we have is for let's see, making. This was kind of fun too. It's already started in some schools, but um, some of the kids have dressed up and become the character. So
Oh,
they
cool.
made their own Benjamin and showed up at a speech that I was giving, and that was a nice surprise. And that's now coming in the packet as well. Is like um, illustrating for the younger ones. It's maybe an illustration of the
Hmm.
characters that they like. They might like Dottie or Ginger, one of the other characters in the book, and um, others have actually out of paper mache or actually made a costume and dressed up, because it's very popular now. Often in schools, we do something called Book Week, and
Okay.
we have dress up as the character day.
Oh,
And so
cool.
that's another activity that teachers can make use of. Mhm.
And you mentioned too that you also have another book coming out, your book about the elephants.
Yes. And the elephants, that one is even, it's geared, it's again a picture book, but it's based
Hmm.
on, it's a nonfiction picture book because it's about a true lady who rehabilitates orphan elephants, and it takes about 10 years, the whole process. And her goal is not to have them as pets. Unfortunately, their parents have been killed by the poachers. And so
Mm.
she rescues them. And then, the challenge she has is the older ones, she's been able to help them survive. But what do you do with the ones who are so young, they're still milk dependent? And so she was the first in the world actually to create actually a milk product that works, that's elephant baby formula.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
so, and then it's a long process, and she has a whole team working with her in Kenya. Um, and then the amazing part is the elephants sense that her orphans are ready to go back into the wild, and a lot of her former orphans, even though they're thousands of kilometers away, sense that the new ones are coming and come to receive them and take them back into the wild.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
an amazing thing that elephants do that. They
Right.
they'll do take care of their own,
Right.
and so she's been very successful. It was very difficult to do, and unfortunately, she passed away just a few years back. But her family is carrying on the tradition. That's
And so
and
how is it different between writing a fiction storybook about a worm as compared to a nonfiction children's book? How did you have to pivot with that through the creativity process?
oh, yeah, it's quite different. I mean, the tradition now of storytelling it's a little bit different than when I was a kid. Usually, the nonfiction books were, about biographies were always written, in a timeline where, from birth to death in this instance. Um, and nowadays, it's not always that way. You can start with a different aspect. There's usually a theme behind it, and it could be another one I have about a boy who's helping, challenge, tackling the aspect of the plastic problem in the oceans, and he's doing about that. But the book is about how he's into tinkering, and he was bullied as a kid, and so but that how he was more of an introvert actually helped him solve puzzles. So the theme is
Oh,
more
okay.
about like how he overcomes certain things. And with Daphne, the elephant book, it's a bit similar. She's another one in a way like Benjamin, who doesn't give up. She's
Mm,
challenged by a lot of things, but her love of the elephants keeps her going. And but the difference is the research, because
okay.
it's a nonfiction. Everything I put into the book, even for the illustrator, from the plants that are there, have to be actually in Kenya, where she's from. And
Right.
so there's a lot of research that goes into making it authentic, and um, otherwise it turns into they will consider it a fiction piece. And but if you want it to be actually a nonfiction biography, then there's a lot more research that goes into every aspect of her life, and so that's important. Whereas fiction, it can be entirely made up, and you can create these worlds, but with nonfiction, it'll be fact checked. You need to have your documents, and actually a bit of that will also go back into the back matter. There'll be a
Okay.
bibliography in the back. Again, activities that you do. And actually, there are a lot more activities in that because you can bring in mathematics and geography, activities that have to do with, those kind of things,
Mm,
and, and
right.
science as well.
If people are interested, then Rico, to
Mhm.
learn more about Books for Benjamin and your upcoming books, where's the best place they could go to?
Um, I would say my website, it's rgdeRouen.com. And
Okay.
yes, that my author website. And uh, that's where I'll be posting also the future books. There's also a sequel to Benjamin coming up as well. It will be soon out. Um, the elephant book I mentioned is due to come out. I'm hoping by August, which is World Elephant Day, and
Wow.
yeah, so that's in the works, and hopefully coming soon. So there's a little bit about me there, and the activities. Also, this teacher guide I mentioned will be soon posted here as well for download.
Well, listen, Rico, this has been great, and you got to come back on then, I guess, in August or September when your next book comes out. Then,
I love it. Thank you so much, Barney.
Yeah, it's been a genuine pleasure talking to you, Rico, and I look forward to chatting again.
Thank you.
All right, Rico. Sorry about that.
No worries. But no problem. Deliveries in.
So I had my, I had. Oh, here's my glasses. I had. So that this delivery. So I'm changing my. So we just had. So I got 2 girls and a boy, and so the boy is 2. I got the 2 girls who's 8 and 6, so they share a bedroom. Our house only has 3 bedrooms in it. My mother-in-law lives with us because my wife is Nigerian. So, so we have, and so, I mean, she spent time in Kenya. You understand, like, if you marry someone from Africa, you kind of marry the entire family. So, so my wife is, so my mother-in-law lives with us, which is great because now we have a multi-generational home, which is awesome. But long story short, so what happened is that now that we got 3 bedrooms, so my mother-in-law, me and my wife, and then the girls. So now in our house, we need a 4th bedroom because we have a boy and we got to make sure he has his own space. So what we're doing is that, over explaining something for you right now, Rico, is that, so what we're doing is that we're taking our downstairs. We have a downstairs kind of like game room that we've never actually used. We have to convert that into a bedroom. So me and my wife are that's going to be our bedroom. So then our girls are going to move into our bedroom, and then the boy is going to have his own bedroom, which is the girls' room. So anyway, so what happened is that, so I, to save money, I'm kind of like trying to figure out how to like change the bed. I had my contractor buddies helping me out to figure out how do we change this into a good, like a norm. So he sent me a message saying, so they're delivering the ceiling panels today. I'm like, all right, good. So I that's why I had to move some things around. I'm like, all right, they said they're going to deliver at 11. I'm like, okay, 11. Okay, fine. So that's why I asked, can I move the time? So anyway, they show up at, like, he shows up 45 minutes early. So that's where I had to move some things around. But this will be fun editing later, so this will be good. It'll be seamless. It'll be so seamless when you see the finished version. You won't be able to tell when the whole situation happened. But anyway, so let me ask you the next question here. So